Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition, a nighttime edition, primetime edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Along with me today, this man right here, you see him on the graphic, Steven Cheah, and his top 100 NFL players list. We're going to break this thing down, Steven. I'm excited to do it with you. I'm always excited when you come on the podcast, man. You bring the energy and you always bring some fun, unique perspective. So it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a fun time. I've been putting out, I feel like I kind of, if I'm being honest, I kind of botched this list. Like I started releasing it weekly and then ESPN came out with theirs. And I'm like, oh, dang it. I just wanted to get up for the NFL Top 100. But good things to know for next year. But I got some fun stuff coming next week. The final 20 are going to be revealed.
Yes, I got a little sneak peek before we went live on the air of some of the things Steven's working on for next week. And so y'all are definitely going to want to be tuned into his Twitter account, because there's going to be some good, fun stuff happening there. And you're going to want to check out that. We're going to talk about this top 100 today, Steven, because you've got some, I DM'd you about it, a week ago maybe. And I was like, what's going on here? And there were some questions I had. So I'm excited to get your answers on the show today. By the way, yes, if you're seeing me and you're used to watching the podcast, I am not where I normally am. I'm in Pennsylvania right now. I'm at a different house, not where I normally broadcast from. So we are rolling with it, babe. We don't have the fancy backdrop, but we're rolling with it. We're making the best of the situation that we got it. It's great. The connection that some of y'all complain about might even be better here. So we'll see. But yeah, we're going to get to this top 100 in a second here, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the title sponsor of today's show and all of our shows in the Pewter Report podcast, the wonderful talents of our friends over at Celsius and their Celsius energy drinks, which I am going through withdrawal now as we are on this road trip through PA. And I have not gotten to stop and get myself some Celsius for a couple days now. And when I tell you I was feeling it today, ladies and gentlemen, I was feeling it. So get yourself some Celsius. It is the best energy drink out there. There is no crash. There is unbelievable taste. There's no sugar in these things. Like, it's incredible that they get that taste without it. All the flavors in the world. So make sure you check out Celsius. Go to Celsius.com, figure out where they are around you at the store locator option, or click on those banner ads over at Pewter Report and get yourself a couple different flavors of Celsius today. All right, Steven, we got a lot to break down on this show, and I want to make sure we touch on all of it. But we've got this wonderful top 100 of yours, and we are going to put it up over our faces. So I apologize, people who are watching. But this top 100, and yeah, you might need to expand your screen a little bit if you're watching this on a laptop. But this thing is impressive, dude. There's a lot going on here, first of all. How difficult was this list to put together? Because this requires not just a knowledge of the Bucs, which obviously we'll focus on today, but a pretty extensive knowledge of all the teams in the league.
Yeah, well, one of the things I pride myself on is not being too much of a homer. So I do try to remove a lot of bias. Obviously, I do favor a lot of Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, coincidentally, are the most represented team on the list, but they are the Super Bowl champions and almost unanimously across the league have the best and deepest roster. So that kind of went hand in hand. But yeah, I mean, I pride myself in watching a lot of the games, studying the whole league, and you and I are part of I guess what we consider the film community. So there's a lot of stuff that we're not necessarily watching live, but we come across during the week, and just consulting with a lot of different guys. Something that's been awesome for being in my position over the years is you go to some of these events, you go to the Senior Bowl, you go to a bunch of games, you actually network with people, and you feel comfortable. I have contacts on a bunch of different teams and people that are out of the league now, but still keep up with the game. And I've ran this list by several people and gotten several different revisions and pointers about who to move up, who to move down. I'd be happy to share some of those guys that I originally had a lot lower or higher, and we're just kind of giving the heads up to maybe revise or take a second look at. But yeah, shout out to my guy, Richie, who helped with this graphic. It's been helpful getting this off the ground. But yeah, this has been a really fun project, and I'm excited to see the conclusion through this week.
Right. And I know already people are kind of looking over this list and thinking of ways that they want to try and revise it themselves, or savage questions that they'd like to ask you. So let those fly in the chat. I know some of you already have. Keep that coming. We'll try to rope back and get to a lot of those. Some people have already mentioned that they want us to talk about a guy who is not on this list yet. I think I can say yet. In Tom Brady, in the news that came out today. And now Bruce Arians said on the Pewter Report podcast a few months ago that he said that Brady had dealt with an MCL injury, and that was, so we knew that part. We didn't know until Ian Rappaport's report today. It was a fully torn MCL. How is this possible, Steven Cheah?
I mean, looking on like WebMD and those type of things, and general NFL players with a torn MCL, it's like a 2 to 6 week recovery time. So the fact that he is playing with this, I think, and obviously playing very well at a high level, winning a Super Bowl,
Right.
just kind of adds to the mystique and allure of the GOAT.
It is true, man. What an unbelievable chapter in the whole thing. I mean, that season, just think about the context of his season. Like, just mind-boggling, the stuff that he had to deal with.
The Bucs are almost becoming Patriot-like in the fact that they kind of squirreled this injury away and kind of hid it for a while. Because yes, like on your guys' show, it was revealed like there was some type of issue with the MCL. But back when it was originally reported, there was talks about, it was just some cleanup from something from his original ACL tear, which was like 2009 or something like that, or 2008.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were so secretive about this, and it's July 15th, 16th.
Yep.
This is coming out 5 months after the last game they played is pretty remarkable secrecy.
Right. I know it is. And somebody had said it. It was somebody, I wish I could remember who it was. I should have looked before the show. I apologize to whoever in the Patriots community said it. One of the reporters there said they had heard from
Ben
source.
Violin.
Was that who it was? Okay.
Yep,
so
from Boston Globe.
Right. So he mentioned at the outset that once it came out what this injury was, it was just going to add another chapter to the legend of the GOAT. And it certainly has done that. No doubt about that. Just really incredible stuff. Hey, I want to let people know about another place they can get other incredible stuff over on Spotify Green Room. It's changing the way we talk sports. It's the only place for live audio conversations about the takes, rumors, news, and teams you care about. React to sports news as it happens. Gather all your friends and watch parties for the biggest games. Rep your favorite teams and find your community. Better Sports Talk is just a tap away. Download on the Apple App Store and join the conversation today over on Spotify Green Room. We've got great stuff going on there, even with the Pewter Report account. Our own JC Allen going to be taking over some shows on there. Going to be fun stuff. So make sure you're following Pewter Report on Spotify Green Room. Hey, we got some Bucs news today too, and a guy that I want to start this list with, your top 100, who is not on there, is a man named Chris Godwin, who will now be playing on the franchise tag for the Bucs this season. And probably looking for a big deal in the offseason. If he can put it all together, I think it's a smart decision probably by him. I think the Bucs would have loved to get him if they could now when the market for wide receiver seems down, but Godwin is really betting on himself and betting that the market turns back. I think it's a pretty smart bet by him, but you don't have him in your top 100, Steven, and I was stunned by this. I thought he'd find a slot in there.
Yeah, so I told you I ran this by a bunch of people in the league. The one name that I got heat for from Bucs people once they saw the list was like, there's no Chris Godwin on here. Like, are you kidding me? And it's hard based on the past year. So he dealt with a lot of injuries, obviously. And then when you see him back healthy, the playoffs were one of the most un-Chris Godwin-like performances. I mean, last year, I think he had one drop in 2019. 2020, you go through the playoffs, and I think he has 4 drops in the Washington game. He has a really big drop in the Packers game, and you just kind of wonder about the guy. The franchise tag, you alluded to it. I think it's kind of a smart move from both sides. The Bucs are certainly counting on Godwin bouncing back. He dealt with so many injuries last year, with the concussion, the finger, I think he had a hamstring. So, but they're also, with the franchise tag, they're saving money, because a long-term deal, he likely is in even with the cap, he's likely in Keenan Allen territory, about $20 million a year. Now they get him at, I think, like 16.5. So they're saving a little bit of money against the cap, keeping more of that core together. We'll see what happens after this year. Hopefully the guy gets paid because he's a really humble guy, works his tail off, great blocker, great receiver, typically great hands. We just saw kind of an anomaly, and hopefully he can stay healthy and cash in.
Yeah, let me ask you this, okay? No Chris Godwin in this top 100. I'm just looking at the bottom of this list. Adam Thielen. I'm looking just at wide receivers here. Not even going to try and do a cross-position comparison yet. But Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, these are some wideouts who just made it onto the list. Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp. Those are all guys in the 80s, 90s range on this list.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably squabble with you that Godwin's already better than a few of these guys, or I personally had him ranked higher than a few of these guys, but everybody squabbles about that kind of stuff. That's part of the fun with it. My question to you is, how easy do you think it's going to be for him to move past most of those guys in the 80s and 90s and really work his way up this board? Is it another season like he had in 2019?
Yeah, I think with that, he's like pretty easily up there. So I didn't include it in the graphic just because it didn't really make much sense, but I did like a just missed the cut. So NFL Network does 10 guys miss the cut, so I did 11. I ranked Chris Godwin at 105 overall. So he's the next receiver I have after Thielen.
Okay.
But just given his injuries the past year, the questions about drops, this is almost like a franchise tag for him on this type of list. Like, let's see it for a full year with, a good team. We're not just playing catch up all the time with Jameis. I certainly believe he can do it. I certainly believe he deserves to be in that.
Yeah.
I think, the receiver group overall is you could really argue outside of, I think, the top 4 guys, which have yet to be named. But everyone that has been named so far. So DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, and Adam Thielen. You could really argue that, even guys on the bottom can be right up there, sniffing, the mid 5 to 10 range. So the separation between all these guys is not huge. I mean, the NFL is a league full of elite players. So, we're really parsing hairs when we're doing this.
That's a good point. And it's something to always keep in mind when you're talking about a top 100. Everybody thinks they can do it until you sit down and try the exercise. Like you and I have talked about this. How freaking hard is it, dude? Like there's so many
very hard.
players. Yeah.
Very hard because you can rank positional top 10s and it's really not that bad, but it's hard to compare really good guard play against really good cornerback play. And you're kind of valuing that. And a lot of that is internally, how do you value those positions? What are your key positions? Like guard and center, typically, we'll see this in draft, are later round picks. You're not typically, you do see a Quentin Nelson go, top 10 overall once in a while, but you don't typically see those guys super high. One thing, so I actually did this last year too, and I had Quentin Nelson 3 overall, and I got a lot of blowback from people in the league and also former offensive linemen that were like, Quentin Nelson's not even the best guard in the league. Zach Martin is better than him.
Wow.
I
agree with that.
So, what I guess, I guess this is just a good exercise doing this. And this year is a little bit of a correction on him. He's, I believe, my 42nd player overall. And he's right in there. He's guard 2. He's right behind Wyatt Teller. He's right above Zach Martin. Zach Martin obviously dealt with a bunch of injuries. Is a little bit older this year. And this is a list going into this season. So,
so you use some positional value to make this list, which might be why Ryan Jensen and Ali Marpet also don't make the list, right?
Correct. They were also in my just cutoff. And I did have some feedback. Jensen should probably be on the list.
Right. And, in your fairness to you, you're trying to be look non-biased here, right? Everybody knows you're Bucs fan. You got to work extra hard to get them off your back, right?
So a funny exchange for myself and an anonymous source who is at the league. I was like, there's too many Bucs on the list. I can't have this many Bucs on the list. And the response I just got was Super Bowl champs. Yeah, that's right. So
everything looks good.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Gary says the top 20 is missing. Thank you, Gary. Yes, that will be released. Is it this week and next week or just this week?
So it is Monday and Thursday. So Monday those are coming this week.
Okay, Thursday next. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you're going to get those top 20, Gary. Just hang in there. Make sure you follow Steven Cheah on Twitter to get those answers. Here we go. A non-Bucs question, but it's the first one we have, and I promise we get to him. Long Lost Glazer always is a faithful listener of the pod and always asks good questions. Wants to know, Corey Linsley, one spot above Bakhtiari, is something else. A good center over a great left tackle from the same O-line, same scheme. Would like a breakdown on that one.
Yep. So this is actually one of the ones that I got the most blowback on. I think David Bakhtiari is a top 30 guy easily, but he got hurt on New Year's Eve. There's questions about if he's going to be able to start the season. I think most likely what's going to happen is he's going to start on PUP. So that is the reason why he's ranked lower. Corey Linsley obviously going to the Chargers. He's a first-team All-Pro center. So certainly, should probably be on the list, kind of, positional value again, kind of lower. Bakhtiari fell due to an injury. Their injuries are taken into account. Most of these guys are going into the year healthy. He's one of the few guys that is not, and that affected his ranking for sure.
Okay, got it. That's a good explanation. That's to explain that, because I agree with Long Lost Glazer. Bakhtiari's an elite player, and it sounds like you agree with that too. But the health is a question mark going into the year. For sure.
Like Ronnie Stanley is another guy. So I actually had him ranked 31 overall, but he got hurt and is expected to be ready to start the year. So there's kind of a difference between the two, depending on their current status. I think Bakhtiari, when healthy, is a better player than Ronnie Stanley, but he's obviously, if we're looking at 2021, it's hard to take the unknown.
Right. That makes sense for sure. I know it's good there, and I want to get to who you actually have on the list, because we talked about Godwin. We touched a little bit about Ali Marpet and Ryan Jensen and got some explanations there. But let's talk about the actual list. Let me pull it up again here for you, because you've got some interesting players, some Bucs. We'll focus on Bucs. I know people want to ask questions about other players, and they're welcome to. But I mean, you've got – so the first Buc, I'm going to work from 100 up. And the first one you've got listed here, or the last one I should say on the list you have, is Vita Vea. And a couple spots above him, 4 spots above him, is Jason Pierre-Paul. I don't know that many Bucs fans, and I know we're starting to get into cross-positional comparisons here. I don't know that many Bucs fans put Jason Pierre-Paul ahead of Vita Vea right now if they were ranking the best players on the Bucs, best defensive players on the Bucs. Can you unpack a little bit of your rationale there?
Of course, yeah. So, a lot of this is what we've seen lately. So Vita was great the first, 4 or 5 games of the season until he got hurt in Chicago. I'm sure most people watched In the Current this week where he said, the Chicago game was his best game right before he got hurt. He got hurt with like a minute or 2 left, I think. And then obviously he came back for the Packers game. His first 2 plays in the game, like the edge rushers got sacked. So he certainly has an impact. But we're looking on, full season health. Like, I don't think durability is a question. That seemed like kind of a freak injury, but we kind of need to see a full season of production, of big production from Vita Vea. I mean, he's my favorite player to watch on tape, like by a mile. He's just a freak show. JPP, you can argue, certainly has had health concerns, but he really had a solid season last year. JPP. He certainly had an incredible season last year with the Bucs. They led him in sacks. So, Jason Pierre-Paul, I mean, he's your money guy. That's where you make your money with off the edge on sacks, and positional value edge rushers certainly over defensive tackles.
Yeah. Also, you're a part of JPP's promotional team. We should say that. No, I'm just kidding. JPP does. He loves
the JPP voice.
I was going to say, who doesn't? Everybody does. Shaq Barrett at 73. I thought that was, I was glad to see him included on the list. I think this is probably about as high as you'll see him on one of these lists, but still, glad to see him on the list because I think he deserves that. Especially, playoff performance. He's been healthy. He's been consistent. There's no real question marks with Shaq Barrett. There may not be a 19.5 ceiling every season like some of the other best edge rushers in the league have, but he got there one year. That's crazy in and of itself, because I don't think he has that annual ceiling year to year. But I think he can be a 10 to 12 guy, 10 to 12 sack guy. And so I am anxious to see, but I appreciate you including him on this list. Was that a pretty easy call for you, considering that he's at 73?
It wasn't necessarily an easy call, because I think once you get off the top 2 tiers of edge rushers, so not really surprised. 3 guys that I have kind of in the top 20 that will be named are going to be TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, and Myles Garrett. I think we're looking at that kind of as tier 1. Nick Bosa, you could probably put in there if he didn't have a ton of health questions around him. He's just been injury riddled, going back to high school. He, could be the best one of them all. Chase Young, Joey Bosa also has some health things. And I would kind of put Zadarius Smith right on the bottom of that tier. And then below it, maybe the guy with the most potential, or maybe the most potential on the list, Brian Burns, who we could see put it together. And then I think Shaq, JPP, Chandler Jones, I'd put pretty low. I was really high on him, but then he's getting up there and he's coming off a serious injury. Played 2 games last year, and then Cam Jordan also getting a little long in the tooth. So some older guys to round out the bottom with JPP on there as well, but that can still play for sure.
And Von Miller, he's not on the list, is he?
So I excluded players that did not play any games for whatever reason, either injury or opt-out last year. So Derwin James, Von Miller, Daniil Hunter, these guys were not included on the list just because they've been away from football so long. It's very hard to project where they're going to be.
Right. So this is why Brad Seaton's not on the list, right?
Of course, yes.
I'm just making sure you're still awake. I know we're doing a night pod, so I had to make sure. All right, Devin White at 68. Here's where it gets crazy controversial, and I don't even want
I mean,
What about the specific
you're the Devin White lightning rod.
Yes, I am. I have been on both sides of this battle now, man. I have been on the side of Devin White is we need to pump the brakes a little bit. He's not quite as good yet, and that we need to calm down. And I still kind of feel that way about the Devin White truthers. And then there's PFF ranking him as the 25th best linebacker in the league going into 21. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, that can't be right either. So both sides need to come to the middle a little bit.
All right. I mean, you need to just admit that you're giving the PFF grades for Devin White because all I'm seeing,
I promise.
All I'm seeing is brake pumping for you on the Devin White train. Number one in the league is, I mean, he is when you watch him on tape, and when you just watch him on the TV copy, you see a guy flying around. He goes 100 miles an hour. He makes mistakes at 100 miles an hour too, but he goes 100 miles an hour. I think very much like Jamal Adams, he's a very polarizing guy, right? Because occasionally they are out of position and do struggle in coverage, but they also make tremendous plays when they do make plays. So I've gotten a lot of feedback on why is Jamal Adams so high? I think similar with Devin White, I think they're right on the cusp of being elite, but they haven't put it all together yet. They both have all the potential in the world, to be the best at their position. Maybe I am not necessarily buying that he's the best linebacker in the league, just because there are so many really, really good coverage linebackers, highlighted by Fred Warner, who I have as my LB1.
Yes,
that just play outstanding coverage and impact the game from that end. But some people value the game a little bit differently. Some people still want those Ray Lewis thumper guys who coverage maybe isn't their specialty, but can impact the game so heavily closer to the line of scrimmage.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I have, listen, first of all, you got to check out my recent work, my recent mentions, my recent articles. Even I've said we got to come back. We got to come back a little bit with Devin White if we're PFF. Now, if you're ESPN's people and you're projecting out, to me, that actually more putting Devin as the best linebacker in the league going into the season makes more sense than putting him as the 25th best linebacker to me, because I believe in projecting ahead. And we just saw him put it together for the last 6 games of the year, and he was amazing. I mean, I just think you have to, if I'm betting on something, one end of those extremes, I think both are silly, but it's just funny the disparity we have, right? These are 2 pretty good sources, and he's one of those polarizing players in the league right now, I think.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about PFF, which is always kind of a lightning rod for controversy. So they have their own top 100 list that they're coming out in conjunction with ESPN, and myself, obviously a much smaller entity, but I saw them release a graphic whose top 100 do you like better, ESPN or ours. Their top 100 ranking is not what their numbers show. They have Bryce Callahan as the number 3 corner. They have Stephon Gilmore as number 61. How do they have the audacity to just throw these numbers at us weekly? And they're you know what? These are our top 10 guys. It's pretty close to average. We scrambled up a little bit. Get out of here. And I have a lot of friends over at PFF. So I like those guys, but come on, what do we do?
No, I hear you. Right. Completely. And one thing that's fun, grades take into account the context, of what's who has the hardest matchup here. There's no grading for that. Bryce Callahan, for example, could be going up against every team's number 3 receiver, and so-and-so at outside corner. Carlton Davis is going to have a worse grade, but he's marking ones and man coverage every single week. You tell me which assignment's harder. We've got to find a way to contextualize that, right, in the grading process. They don't with the grades, but they do with the rankings sometimes. So it's kind of figuring out where. But then sometimes they'll have a highly graded player whose context is he should probably be lower, and they have him super high, and it's what are we? So I struggle as well to track what they're doing all the time. But Tristan Wirfs, you have him very high up here. What is he, 51 or?
I think he's
something like that.
52, I think
52, somewhere
62.
62. Oh, okay, sorry. So I don't really have any. I mean, obviously, right? Let's not overthink it. Tristan Wirfs is amazing.
He's fantastic. I mean, gave up 1 sack this year, had really one game that wasn't stellar, and even that game was honestly, it was a pretty good game. He talked about it on he was on your guys' show yesterday. He was on Chris Long's podcast earlier this week. He talked about he tried to kind of change stuff up. that game. And, when he tried to stray away from, the technique he was coached, he had issues. I mean, he's going to have a rematch against Khalil Mack this year, and I think he's going to fare much better. Tristan Wirfs is an elite tackle.
Yeah, I don't say that very often about what players that have just played 1 year. I just think he's a beast. I don't want to overthink it. Maybe I'll end up dumb, but I think he's already special. So that's how
he
could
be. He could be like a top 25 guy next year.
For sure. I don't doubt that at all. Definitely in his wheelhouse. And plus, he doesn't have nearly as hard of matchups, at least on paper, as he had a year ago. So, Long Lost Glazer says, it kills me to put down a Buck, but Carlton Davis at 51 with Tre'Davious White at 53. Care to explain this one? I don't think injuries are a part of this one, right?
No, I mean, honestly, so Carlton Davis gets crushed because he gave up a really big quarter to Tyreek Hill. And you know what? If any corner, I don't care if it's Jalen Ramsey or Xavier Howard or Marlon Humphrey or whoever is singled up on Tyreek Hill with no safety help, they're going to struggle too. So Carlton Davis, until that point, I did a breakdown of him after the Giants game, which was, I don't remember. It was maybe week 9 or 10 or something like that. I was pumping his tires for defensive player of the year. He was outstanding. I mean, if you go back to last year, he played DeAndre Hopkins better than anyone I've ever seen play DeAndre Hopkins. And he has done a really, really good job on Devontae Adams in both their matchups this year. So he's a guy who struggles a little bit with straight line speed. I think he gave up a deep ball to Marquez Valdes-Scantling in the playoffs. What I can say is I ran this list by several people. I didn't get a ton of feedback to move Carlton Davis lower. I get Tre'Davious White has a ton of notoriety. Last year, I think he allowed 0 touchdown passes, but he wasn't as strong this year. I do think that they're very closely matched up. I have seen a lot more of Carlton Davis, and I am very impressed by his game. So I am okay with that ranking. But I have gotten that has been pointed out to me, hey, how come Trey White's not higher? And,
I can't imagine Bill's Mafia would have said anything to you.
Yeah, no, that was kind of a big one. Throw this list in the trash, Trey White.
Throw yourself in the trash too.
Yeah.
Throw yourself through a table and then in the trash.
Yeah, I mean, I like Trey White as a player. 53 is a very good ranking for a cornerback. I think he's quarterback 6. Yeah,
he's very, very good player. I'm pretty big on Carlton. It's crazy because I was big on Trey White coming out, was not as big on Carlton Davis coming out. Carlton Davis just has maximized everything he's got, man. He is not like this amazing, twitchy, fast. He's just not like an unreal athlete. He's a fine athlete. He's not a bad athlete. He's a fine athlete. He's committed, man. He's technical. He's tough. He's smart. And he's got a lot of traits I really like that I think will age well too. By the way,
I know he didn't have a great year, but look at what he did to Michael Thomas this year. I mean, Michael Thomas had, I think 17 yards in week 1 or 9, and only 9 of them were on Carlton Davis. He is an absolute monster that does not get enough respect nationally. I think, when you look at that, I would put him right in the tier 2 of corners: Carlton Davis, Trey White, James Bradbury. I think you can kind of mix those guys up.
James Bradbury and Carlton Davis did not make the ESPN top 10 poll survey of around the league. I could kind of believe it on Carlton just because I'm sure people watch the
Carlton wasn't. He was an honorable mention.
Right, and so was Bradbury. But I couldn't believe Bradbury didn't make it. I think he's a stud as well. So interesting.
God, he's off the Panthers and out of our division.
Seriously, he was a problem for Mike Evans.
Mike Evans does not like him.
Yeah, although I thought Evans played him great in the Giants game this past year. Yep. I really did. I thought. I know his stats weren't great, but Brady missed him a few times. I thought he was open a lot against Bradbury. So Braulio wants to know, Steven, curious, are you still on the TB12 hydration goals? Oh, look at that.
So yes, I'm drinking a lot of water. I did take a little bit of time off. So people may remember if they were following me during the Bucs playoff run, I said as soon as that Monday started, I was doing the TB12 method for as long as the Bucs were in the playoffs. And I was 100% strict about it. Nothing. If there was a little bit of peanut butter left on a spoon or a knife that I was making my son a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, wasn't having it, not even licking the knife. And I was doing about 125 ounces of water a day. You're at my weight, I'm about 200 pounds. You're supposed to do about 100. I was crushing it, doing a little bit more on game days. Now I'm trying to do the minimum of TB12, which is 100 ounces a day for me. And I'm doing okay at it. I've been doing it for a week or two. Sometimes I'll have off days, but I try to stick to it. TB12 method is the truth. If any of you guys are out there looking to try it, I would highly, highly recommend it.
Wow, you do promotions for Tom Brady too. I didn't know that too. That's awesome. You got to deal with the Bucs, man. I love it. All right, here we got to talk about another. Speaking of promotions, speaking of shameless plug, we got another promotion here. Underdog Fantasy. Let's talk about it. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy football for big cash prizes. On Underdog Fantasy, you just draft. You don't have to worry about waivers or lineups or injuries. Underdog handles it all for you. Go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app. Draft a season-long best ball team, and that's it. No season. We're going to give you $25 when you sign up, so you can take a free shot at a $1 million grand prize in their fantasy football tournament. That's right. You can get a free $25 in bonus cash on Underdog Fantasy if you use the promo code PEWTER, PEWTER, when you make your first deposit. I love Underdog because it's just so easy to use. Their mobile app is slick. The website is user-friendly. You can do what I've been doing. Go to underdogfantasy.com, join a league, draft a team, and that's it. You're good for the season. Remember, go to underdogfantasy.com, the App Store, the Google Play Store, sign up with the code PEWTER, and get a free $25 in bonus cash with Underdog. Got some Pewter Report fantasy leagues that are going to be hitting the airwaves here soon that you're going to be hearing about, having the opportunity to join with us and draft with us. It's going to be a fun time, Bucs fans. So stay tuned to that. Get yourself involved with Underdog. Use that promo code. Download the app and stand by to hear more about how you can get in a league with some Pewter reporters to try and beat us this season in fantasy football. All right, let's get back to the list real quick here. We're almost done. We got to wrap up a few more names we need to touch on. Levante David over there at 58. We're going back down the list from Carlton Davis. We jumped ahead to take that question, but Levante David at 58. How many linebackers? I didn't do the math here ahead of him. I think you have 3 ahead of him, I believe.
LB4, yeah.
LB4. Okay, so what puts him behind the guys ahead of him? I know it's Fred Warner, Eric Kendricks, and Bobby Wagner.
Yep. He's 3 spots behind Bobby Wagner. I think they're pretty similar. I thought I've watched, every slap in Levante since 2015. I thought he slipped a little bit towards the end of this year. He is getting a little bit older. He's still, what I would consider like almost a perfect football player. Like he's always in the right spot. His instincts are incredible. Devin White has more of the physical tools right now. Levante's still super fast. But, Devin White is just, bigger, stronger, faster at this point. Levante is just so smart up here. Really motivates the football team. He's a great player who still has, some years left. We signed to, I believe, a 2-year deal that's kind of team friendly. So hopefully, he stays at that elite level and can, right off the sunset wearing a Bucs jersey.
Yeah, I think that you're spot on with Levante David. I mean, he still just has so many good traits. 58 might seem low to some people. I think it's a great rank. I mean, people are underestimating how hard it is to get onto a top 100. Yeah. I think it should be really, really, really difficult. Elite players are at 58 overall. So I think it's a good ranking for him. All right, Mike Evans is the highest Buck on this top 100 that you have. Obviously, there's 20 spots to go. Yep. I think we noticed at least one name that isn't on here that will probably be in that top 20. Is it just one Buck? Can we know that, or is that too much information?
It's just one Buck.
One Buck. All right. So we can figure out probably who that is. But Mike Evans, other than that, is the highest ranked Buccaneer, and he is 46th overall on your rankings. So 2 Bucks in the top 50, although bunch in the 51 to 75 range, really. So what was the route to Evans this past season? And you said, other than who's going to be in the top 20, Mike Evans was the best Tampa Bay Buccaneer going into 2021, right?
Yep. So, I mean, he's coming off a career high, 13 touchdowns in the regular season. He had 2 more in the playoffs. The Bucs have so many weapons at receiver. He's coming off the record that everyone wanted to see him get, 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's going for 8 this year. I don't see why he won't get it. But he's just like such a great football player in terms of size and speed. And his route running has gotten so much better over the years. He's really a complete receiver. He is, getting a little bit older, but he's still kind of in his prime. I put a couple young guys over him. I put DK Metcalf, who's a little bit bigger, stronger, faster, and AJ Brown, who Similar as far as, he's just, he's a put your team on your back guy. Mike Evans, it's hard to parse necessarily because you can't just look at stats and be like, okay, this guy's better, because the Bucs are spreading the ball around so much more, whereas AJ Brown's just getting force fed every time they need a big play. They're going to AJ Brown. Whereas we got, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, we got Scotty Miller sometimes, Mr. January, Tyler Johnson. Yeah, Mike Evans, though, if he was just the guy on the football team, I don't see why he could put up, 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. But it's about winning, and he won a lot this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did the same thing with DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, and I got some, and I did it on a Bucs site, so I got some blowback for that as well. And I have Chris Godwin over Evans as well. I think Evans is a heck of a player.
You have Godwin over Evans?
Yes, I've Godwin over Evans. Here's my rationale, by the way. And this was actually a column I did too, by the way. I'll send it to you. But I did a column on who's better, Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. And I went trait by trait at the traits I use on my grading scale to rank wide receivers. So I did the same, I ran them through the same traits basically, but looking at it from NFL tape rather than looking at college tape. And what I said was, to me, Godwin possessed a lot of the things, the traits that I really value in a receiver. I think both are elite route runners. I didn't really give either the edge in terms of separation. I gave Evans an edge a little bit as a vertical receiver, but I still think Chris Godwin's really good when he's asked to do that. The things that stood out to me for Godwin, he's better after the catch. I think that's a hugely valuable trait as a wide receiver. Right. And I think that's a big part of Godwin's game that we sleep on a little bit, that I think is really, really important. So that was one area I gave him. And then another one that I gave him was, this is going to surprise some people, but I wish I had the numbers. I should have pulled them up for the show. But Chris Godwin is actually a better contested catch receiver than Mike Evans has been for the last 2 years. Chris Godwin, you could make an argument based on the number of his contested catch percentage that he's the best, and over how consistent it's been over his whole career, really, that he's the best contested catch receiver in the league. Now, people don't think of it necessarily as him winning jump balls over dudes down the field all the time, but Chris Godwin makes catches with guys coming over his back. He makes catches well outside his frame. The guys are contesting. He makes all the types of catches while he's being hit, while he's battling off a defender. And I think Evans is a good contested catch receiver for sure. I think that part of his game gets a little bit propped up, and it shouldn't. And I think the part of his game that gets a little put down is the separation ability. I think he's a terrific route runner and a much better separator than people think. People think he's just a big linear jump ball guy. It just couldn't be further from that. I just don't think that's his game, in my opinion.
Yeah. You're spot on with the run after the catch thing. I mean, did you account like physical profile into it? Because, Godwin certainly is like a nice size receiver, but Evans is is Megatron minus like 8 pounds. Like they're the same size. People don't talk about that enough.
Right. I mean, his frame is awesome at this point, but at this point in their careers, I think this many years into, I think it just kind of is what it is. Like, can you win? It's how you play with that frame at this point already. Both guys are pretty developed, in my opinion. So I think it was like with Metcalf, that might be a factor because he can still keep getting better. This freak, he's insane. That's why I had it over both guys. I think AJ Brown, both you could say that about. So, but with Evans and Godwin, like I said, I think Godwin wins in more of the ways that Evans wins than Evan wins in the game ways that Godwin wins. Okay. So I could rather have Godwin, but they were like literally one spot. I mean, I think Godwin was 8, Evans was 9.
But let's PFF it because Evans has taken that number 1 corner.
That's right. That's the best argument for Mike Evans. And I said that in the column. I said the best argument for Mike Evans is that he always gets the number 1 guy, or most of the time gets the number 1 guy. And Chris Godwin doesn't really get the number 1 guy. Really hardly ever. So that is a good argument for Evans. It's contextual. Also, we don't know what Chris Godwin would do against the number 1 corner, so we can't rule him out because of it. But we can definitely use it to say here's what we know with Mike Evans, and we've seen it happen, and it's a big plus in his favor. I think on the tape, I like Godwin's skill set better, but you're right. That's the best argument for Evans is that he takes on the number 1 guy. Can't get away from that part of the argument.
We have a sample size. There are guys that he struggles against. Marshawn Lattimore typically doesn't have great games against. Like James Bradbury, typically doesn't have great games against. So yeah, you're right. Like we have not really had that. We don't have that finite answer for Godwin yet, but maybe we'll get that this year.
Hopefully we get it. Hopefully we don't get it. Actually, hopefully he stays in.
Hopefully Mike stays healthy. And,
we never find out. We never know what Godwin can be.
Yeah.
But we didn't even mention Antonio Brown, and I know he's not in your top 100 either. And there's just probably too much. We don't need to get into it. I don't think that much, right? It's just too much not enough time on the field, right, to qualify.
Yeah. Like, what could he do? Like, we saw, I think it was the Atlanta game. He had something like 9 catches for like 125 and 2 touchdowns and like kind of a big game.
If he gets opportunity, he can do that every week, right?
Right. Yeah. But like, if we're thinking about this as like a draft and like positional value and other things like kind of off the field stuff kind of play into this, which is kind of hard.
Yeah.
Something that I might get heat for is I do have Deshaun Watson in my top 20 with an asterisk, like assuming no suspension, because we don't know what's happening, but it's hard to just not list him because he's a top 5-6 quarterback. Like, he is an elite player. We don't know what's going to happen with him, obviously. So,
right.
But yeah,
he's a top 20 player. Doesn't mean we support him. He's off the field. If it,
of course,
we know he's a good football player.
Of course, but I'm just trying to compare like him and Antonio Brown. Like Antonio Brown is like one big mistake from like being gone. So like from any team, especially the Bucs, but like you got to kind of take that into account.
Right, for sure. It's definitely worth considering for sure. So yeah, interesting. I mean, we've got lots of comments on the Evans Godwin. Mike never makes the cat that Godwin did boxing out savage in the Green Bay game. I think he could, but I agree that Godwin just has unbelievable body control that gets slept on. The only main trait of playing the position that Evans really lacks is his yak ability. Yeah, I think that is if you ever list the weakness of Evans, I think yak ability is an overlooked important trait for a receiver, and that's always been. I will say this: he fights, man. He's tough. That Rams game, like, he's tough.
Yeah.
He just has no elusiveness, no real tackle.
Right,
but he'll push through guys.
Yeah, I mean, in the Super Bowl, he had the 1 catch for 31 yards. He had some nice like yards after catch, but he's not like that Rams game, that touchdown you're talking about, where it's like, second and third efforts. You don't really see that as much. He's more of like a go down, get out of bounds guy, which is, that's okay. Marvin Harrison did that too. I don't think it's a coincidence why he has like great durability. Like, people haven't been able to break that record. He's not the best receiver ever after 7 seasons, but he is arguably the most durable. Like, that's why he's been able to do that.
Right. Yeah, that consistency, man. People cannot sleep on that. Consistency, man, is just so big. Somebody mentioned today, I think it was our old Taylor Jenkins, who used to work for Peter Report. He mentioned he'd take Amari Cooper, he said on Twitter, over Evans or Godwin. And I just said, I can't do it, man. Like, consistency.
Get out of here, dude.
Come on. Yeah, I know, Grizz. Come on, dude. I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what Amari Cooper I'm getting all the time. I think he's unbelievable talent. I'm not sold on Amari Cooper week to week like I'm sold on Evans or Godwin. Like, that's just my opinion on it.
The Amari Cooper that's playing Vernon Hargreaves every week, I'll take that. But
yeah, that's jeez.
I think that might have been. I think that might have been before your time, John.
No, I wasn't. I mean, my time covering the Bucs, but not my time watching football. And I went back and watched the 2019 season before last season, and I was like, how was this guy starting for a chunk of this season? Like, it's hard to believe that was just in 2019, man.
Amari Cooper took him to the woodshed.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. He showed his face on the field again, to be honest.
Yeah.
But no, it's good stuff. It's great insight. I love talking about these things because, like you said, it's ambiguous, right? There isn't like one set ranking that just makes sense that's right. There's a lot of different ways to look at these things. There's different ways to value things. There's injuries, there's character, there's whether they played last season. There's just a lot of context needed. And I think that's an important part of what makes lists like this fun and not necessarily something for people to get all up in arms about and block people on Twitter about and stuff like that. It's fun. Like, we should treat it as that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun back and forth. I've gotten into a couple unpleasant back and forths, but gotten some fun back and forth. Chris Long was talking about how he thinks Montez Sweat is actually better than Chase Young, which was an interesting take.
Do not agree at all. But I do think we've jumped the gun on Chase Young a little bit.
Sure, but so I don't think he's better than the 2 Bosa brothers, but when you factor in health, if I know, okay, I'm going to get one of these 3 guys and I have to take all of their injury concerns into this season, like into this year, I would take Chase Young over those 2 guys. But look at Joey Bosa. He's played 5 years. He's only played 2 full seasons. Like, he's missed fairly significant time in 3 seasons. Nick Bosa has had injuries going back to high school. He played 2 games last year. Like, he could have been, defensive player of the year his rookie year. I think he's awesome. And of those 3, probably the best by a long shot if he's healthy. But I don't know if I'm getting that guy.
Right, exactly. You don't always know. And injuries make it so hard. I take injuries out because I don't know if I'm a doctor. A doctor could look at Joey Bosa right now and be like, yeah, likelihood of this dude getting hurt ever again is the same as every other player in the league. There's just no carryover from the injuries he's had in the past. That could be the case. I don't know. So I can't say, so I always just take it out. But if you're considering it, yeah, it throws a wrinkle in it that makes things really, really difficult. Speaking of throwing a wrinkle in your typical package here, we got to talk about a special promotion that we've got going on with our friends over at Manscaped. And Scott Reynolds said, make sure we do the Manscaped read and the Manscaped promotion when Steven Cheah's on the podcast, because he knew you would appreciate a little manscaping. Summer's here. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? You're in luck. Our friends at Manscaped just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. The 4.0. Complement your summer bod with a trim from the leaders in male grooming. The sun is shining and calling your name, fellas. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for hot guys summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code PEWTER, PEWTER, the Manscaped 4.0. I mean, let's talk about what's in this package here. You get the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, crop preserver, very key. Scott has talked about that on the pod before. Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Toner, Performance Boxer Briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. The Lawnmower Performance Package 4.0 with the Lawnmower 4.0, that thing's got an unbelievable light on it, so you can see everything you got to take care of down there. Yes, you got the travel lock, so you're not running out, batteries not running out an inconvenient time. You leave it on in your bag, etc. It's waterproof, clutch, very clutch. It comes with that amazing bag. The boxers that this thing comes with are probably the most comfortable thing I've ever worn in my entire life. The ball deodorant, clutch. Again, this package just has it all. You got to get it. It's the Performance Package 4.0. You can get it with 20% off plus free shipping with that promo code PEWTER. 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com with the promo code PEWTER, PEWTER, with our friends over at Manscaped. Steven, this was great stuff, man. We got through a lot of stuff. We talked a lot of good ball. It's always fun catching up with you. I appreciate you jumping on here. Before you go, you gave us a JPP. Can you give us a Giovanni Bernard?
So I think this is actually going to catch on because Tristan Wirfs is on it. A couple other guys have talked to me about it. I think we're going to see this one catch on big this year. But my buddy Giovanni Bernard.
I just can't believe the rolls you get on those R's are just incredible.
So what's actually crazy is like the Bucs are like seeing like great success obviously now. The JPP thing I'd been doing for his entire career, and he just comes to Tampa, and then that becomes a thing. And then I have maybe like 2 or 3 other athletes that I do this for. Giovanni Bernard was one, and he gets dealt here, and so I immediately busted out, and that's this year's
It's funny. Everybody's excited about Brady finally has protection. Brady is finally the back to throw to. You're like, I get to do the name on Twitter for a buck. I love it.
Yes,
that's great stuff. Everybody, make sure you're following Steven on Twitter at Steven Steven Cheah Cheah. Make sure you're following him on Twitter. He is the best in the business. He is a terrific follow, and he does great work. So make sure you give him your time and energy and be polite to him, even if you disagree with his top 100, or you'll have me to answer to. Steven, thank you so much for joining the show today, man. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you to everybody for listening.
Absolutely. It's been great stuff. Next week on the Pewter Report podcast, we will be back. We've got lots in store for you. We've got more guests lined up for you. And by the way, Bucs training camp is 10 days away. 9, I guess, because it's the end of the day today. Let's say 9 days. Let's just call it 9. 9. We're in single digits. Cannot even wait.
Go.
Great stuff coming. Great stuff coming on the Pewter Report podcast. So keep it tuned right here. And we thank you all for another great week and another great attendance of all our shows on the Pewter Report podcast. Out.